The champagne glass shattered before Marcus Webb heard the words that would change everything. He'd been replacing the trash liner near the executive boardroom's west window, the one overlooking the San Francisco Bay, when Richard Ashford's voice cut through the celebration like a blade through silk. The sound of breaking crystal came from somewhere behind the mahogany doors, followed by laughter that felt too sharp, too performative. Marcus had worked as a night janitor at Ashford Technologies for 11 years. He knew the difference between genuine joy and the kind of laughter people manufactured when their boss demanded it. "Come on, someone entertain me," Ashford's voice boomed. "I've just closed a $4.2 billion acquisition. Surely somebody here has something interesting to say." Marcus should have moved on. His shift didn't officially start until 7, but he'd arrived early because the apartment had felt too empty, too full of Angela's absence. 6 months now. The doctors had said glioblastoma was aggressive, but nothing prepared him for how quickly she'd slipped away, how the woman who danced in their kitchen to Motown records became someone who couldn't remember his name. The boardroom door swung open. A young executive stumbled out, face flushed with expensive scotch and embarrassment. He nearly collided with Marcus's cleaning cart. "Watch it!" the executive muttered, straightening his tie, then louder, back toward the room. "The janitor's here. That's entertainment right there." Marcus felt his jaw tighten. 43 years old, and he still felt like that kid in Detroit being told he'd never amount to anything. He started to push his cart away. "Wait." Ashford appeared in the doorway, all 6'2" of him, wearing a suit that cost more than Marcus made in 3 months. His eyes had that particular glassiness that came from celebrating too hard. "What's your name?" "Marcus Webb, sir." "Marcus Webb." Ashford rolled the name around like he was tasting wine. "You know what I was just telling these people? That nothing surprises me anymore. Everything's transactional. Everything has a price, even emotion." He gestured expansively. "Come in here, Marcus Webb." Every instinct told Marcus to decline politely, to disappear into his routine. But something in Ashford's tone wasn't quite a request. The boardroom looked like a battlefield of success. 20 executives sprawled in leather chairs around a table large enough to land a helicopter on. Half-empty bottles of Macallan 25 dotted the surface. Someone had ordered catering, remnants of sushi and artisanal cheese scattered on imported china. The air conditioning couldn't quite dispel the smell of ambition and alcohol. "Gentlemen and ladies, I present you with Marcus Webb." Ashford's arm swept toward him like a game show host revealing a prize. "Marcus, these fine people have been trying to impress me all evening. Share prices, profit margins, synergy." He said the last word with exaggerated distaste. "Do you know what moves me, Marcus?" "No, sir." "Neither do they." Ashford laughed, and this time several executives joined in, though their eyes remained watchful, calculating. "Here's what I propose. A challenge, a game, if you will." Marcus's hand tightened on the handle of his cleaning cart. The fluorescent lights felt too bright suddenly, the room too warm. Music moves people, right? A good song, a symphony, whatever. Ashford was pacing now, building to something. "But that's easy, cheap. Anyone can push a button and make people feel something. So here's my challenge, Marcus Webb." He stopped directly in front of him, so close Marcus could smell the scotch on his breath. "Move me, make me feel something, make me cry, make me laugh, make me angry, I don't care which, but do it without music, without tricks, just you, standing there, talking." The room had gone completely silent. "And if you can do it, genuinely do it, I'll write you a check for $50,000, right here, right now." Ashford pulled out his phone, opened his banking app with a flourish. $50,000 for 5 minutes of your time. Not bad for a janitor's salary, eh? Someone near the back of the room coughed uncomfortably. A woman with silver hair and kind eyes looked away. Marcus felt something cold settling in his chest. This wasn't generosity, this was entertainment. He was the court jester, brought in to amuse the nobles. And yet, $50,000. That was Angela's medical debt. That was the second mortgage he'd taken out when the insurance companies started denying claims. That was breathing room he hadn't had in years. "What do you say, Marcus?" Ashford's smile was all teeth, no warmth. "Surely everyone has a story. Surely you can make a billionaire feel something for 5 minutes." Marcus looked around the room. 20 pairs of eyes watched him with varying degrees of discomfort, curiosity, pity. Most of these people had never spoken to him beyond a distracted thanks when he emptied their trash. He was furniture to them, wallpaper. "I don't think—" Marcus started. "Come on!" Ashford clapped him on the shoulder too hard. $50,000. My assistant will start a timer. 5 minutes. Talk. Make me feel. Or don't, and we'll all go back to our evening and you can go back to your mop bucket. But at least try. What do you have to lose?" Everything, Marcus thought. But he'd already lost everything that mattered 6 months ago in a hospice bed that smelled like industrial cleaner and failure. "Okay," he heard himself say. A young man in the corner pulled out his phone, opened a stopwatch app. "Ready when you are, Mr. Ashford." "Begin," Ashford said, settling into the chair at the head of the table like a king on a throne. Marcus stood there, his uniform, navy blue with Ashford Technologies embroidered over the pocket, suddenly feeling too tight. 5 minutes. How do you distill a life into 5 minutes? How do you make someone who's never known loss understand what it means to lose? He opened his mouth, closed it, thought of Angela's laugh, the way she used to hum while cooking, how toward the end she couldn't remember his name, but still reached for his hand in the dark. Marcus's voice cracked. He cleared his throat. "My wife died 6 months ago." The words landed in the room like stones dropped in still water. A few people shifted in their seats. Ashford's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. "Her name was Angela Renee Webb. We met when I was 19, working at a car wash in Detroit. She was—" Marcus paused. Seeing her so clearly, it hurt. "She was everything I wasn't. Confident, educated. She'd been to college for 2 years before her father got sick and she had to come home. She used to read to me at night, poetry, history, things I'd missed out on by dropping out of high school to help my mother pay rent." The timer on the young man's phone glowed. 1:14. "She taught me that dignity isn't about money or position, that a man who mops floors is no less than a man who sits in a corner office." Marcus's eyes found Ashford's. "She made me believe that." Ashford's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "When she got sick, when the doctor said glioblastoma, stage 4, I learned what healthcare really costs in this country, not the number on the bill. That was bad enough. But the real cost, the cost of watching someone you love fight for approval for each treatment. The cost of choosing between experimental therapy and keeping the lights on. The cost of watching her apologize for being sick, for being expensive, for still being alive." The room had gone deathly quiet. Someone near the window was crying softly. "I work here every night, Mr. Ashford. I clean your offices. I empty your trash. I see the emails people leave open on their screens, the ones about bonuses bigger than my annual salary, about vacation homes and stock options, and I never resented it. Not once. Because Angela taught me that comparison is poison." Timer 2:47. "But sitting in that hospice, holding her hand while she couldn't remember my name, calling me the nice man, I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about it. About how different things might have been if I'd made different choices, if I'd finished school, if I'd been someone who sat at this table instead of cleaning around it." Marcus's voice had dropped to barely above a whisper, but in that silent room it carried perfectly. The night she died, She had a moment of clarity, just one. 5 minutes maybe, like your challenge, Mr. Ashford. 5 minutes of her being Angela again. And you know what she said to me? Ashford didn't respond, but his hand had moved to his tie, loosening it slightly. She said, "Marcus, you've been trying to save me, but I need you to promise you'll save yourself. Promise me you won't disappear when I'm gone." Timer, 3:58. I promised her, but I've been disappearing anyway, coming to work early, staying late, cleaning the same floors twice because going home means facing an apartment where everything reminds me of her absence. Her coffee mug still in the cabinet, her sweater on the back of the chair, her voice on the answering machine saying, "We can't come to the phone right now," like she's still part of that we. Marcus realized his hands were shaking. He clasped them together. "So when you ask me to move you, Mr. Ashford, to make you feel something, I have to be honest. I don't know if I can, because the thing I've learned about feeling is that you can't force it. You can't buy it. You can't make it happen in 5 minutes on command. Real feeling, the kind that changes you, it sneaks up. It happens when you're not performing, when you're not trying to prove anything." Timer, 4:45. I've watched you in this building for 11 years. I've seen you work until 3 in the morning. I've seen you throw phones at walls when deals fell through. I've cleaned up the conference rooms after you've fired people, and I've seen their faces, the shock, the fear, the calculations of how they'll tell their families. And I've never once seen you cry. I've never seen you look at another human being like they mattered more than the deal, the acquisition, the bottom line. Ashford's face had gone completely still, a mask without expression. "So no, Mr. Ashford, I don't think I can move you. Not because I don't have a story worth telling, but because to be moved you have to be willing to be vulnerable. You have to be willing to let something matter more than winning." Marcus took a step back toward his cart. "But I appreciate the offer of the money. I really do. That's 6 months of Angela's medical debt. That's real to me. But I'm not going to perform my grief for your entertainment. Some things aren't transactional. Some things don't have a price." Timer, 5:12. The young man with the phone looked up, confused. "That's 5 minutes, sir." Marcus turned to leave, his heart hammering so hard he thought everyone could hear it. He'd just turned down $50,000. He'd just told off one of the most powerful men in Silicon Valley. He'd probably be fired before the night was over. "Wait." The word was quiet, but it stopped Marcus cold. Ashford stood slowly, and when Marcus turned back, he saw something he'd never seen in 11 years. The billionaire's eyes were wet, not crying, not quite, but wet, a shine that hadn't been there before. "You're right," Ashford said, and his voice was different now, rougher, smaller. "You're absolutely right." He pulled out his phone again, but this time his hands were trembling slightly. The entire room watched as he tapped and swiped. "What's your full name, middle initial?" Marcus James Webb did more tapping. Then Ashford looked up. "Check your bank account tomorrow morning, not 50,000. 100,000. Not because you performed, because you didn't. Because you had the courage to tell me the truth no one else in this room would dare to say to my face." Marcus stood frozen. "And you're not fired," Ashford continued. "You're promoted, facilities manager, starting Monday. Triple your current salary, health insurance that would have covered your wife's treatments. Because you're right, it shouldn't have cost you everything just to keep her alive." The woman with silver hair was openly weeping now. Several other executives stared at their hands. "Is there anything else?" Ashford's question was genuine, not rhetorical. Marcus thought of Angela, thought of her final request that he save himself. "No, sir," he said quietly. Thank you. But I have to finish my shift. There are still floors that need cleaning." He turned to leave again, pushing his cart toward the door. "Marcus!" He stopped one more time. "I'm sorry," Ashford said. "For your loss, for all of it." Marcus nodded once, not trusting his voice, and left the boardroom. Behind him, the silence remained, thick, heavy, and loaded with things no one knew how to say. The champagne had gone flat, the celebration was over, and in the hallway, pushing a cleaning cart with squeaky wheels, Marcus Webb began to cry for the first time since Angela's funeral. Not because of the money, not because of the promotion, but because for 5 minutes someone had actually listened. Marcus didn't check his bank account on Saturday morning. Old habits died hard, and looking at numbers that would only confirm his poverty had stopped being useful years ago. Instead, he did what he always did on Saturdays. Drove to Forest Lawn Cemetery in Colma, where Angela rested under a simple granite marker they'd chosen together during one of her clear moments. The fog was thick that morning, typical for the Bay Area in late October. It turned the cemetery into something ethereal, stones emerging from white like ships from clouds. Marcus parked his 2008 Honda Civic, the one with the check engine light that had been on for 2 years, and walked the familiar path to Section 7, Plot 142. Someone had left fresh flowers. Marcus stopped, confused. He was Angela's only regular visitor. Her parents had passed years ago. Her sister lived in Phoenix and rarely made it out. But there, beside the roses Marcus had brought last week, sat a pristine arrangement of white lilies in a crystal vase. The card read, "To Angela Renee Webb, who taught a good man about dignity. May her memory be a blessing. R.A." Marcus sank to his knees in the wet grass. Richard Ashford had been to his wife's grave. "Angela," he whispered, fingers brushing the cold stone. "Baby, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what I did." His phone buzzed in his pocket. He almost ignored it. This was Angela's time, sacred and private. But something made him check. A text from an unknown number. "Mr. Webb, this is Jennifer Kwan, Mr. Ashford's executive assistant. He asked me to forward you something. Please watch when you have a moment." A link followed. Marcus sat back on the damp grass, his work boots leaving mud stains on his jeans. He clicked the link. YouTube, a video titled, "Billionaire CEO Gets Real Talk from Janitor. What Happens Next Will Restore Your Faith in Humanity." His stomach dropped. The video had been posted 14 hours ago and already had 2 million views. Someone had filmed it. Of course they had. In a room full of phones, someone had recorded the whole thing. The video started with Ashford's challenge, "Move me without music and I'll pay," and continued through Marcus's entire 5 minutes. The comments section was exploding. "This man has more dignity in his pinky than most people have in their whole body. I'm crying at my desk. This is what real humanity looks like." Ashford showing actual human emotion. Did hell freeze over? That part about choosing between treatment and keeping the lights on, that's America's healthcare system in a nutshell. Someone start a GoFundMe for this man immediately. Marcus's hands shook as he scrolled. The video had been shared on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Cable news was picking it up. Morning Edition with Paula Chen had posted a clip with the caption, "Janitor's emotional speech to tech billionaire goes viral. Watch this space." His phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Mr. Webb, this is Derek Torres from CNN. We'd love to interview you about the video that's been circulating." Marcus hung up. It rang again immediately. Different number. He declined the call. A text from his daughter, Sarah, who he hadn't spoken to in 3 months. "Dad, are you the guy in this video? Call me." 23 years old, and she barely acknowledged his existence anymore. Not since he couldn't afford to help with her college tuition, not since Angela got sick, and he became unreliable, unavailable, too consumed with medical bills and grief. Another text, this one from the facility supervisor at Ashford Technologies. "Marcus, what the hell is going on? My phone's been ringing off the hook. Media wants access to the building. Ashford's lawyers are involved. Call me ASAP." Marcus looked at Angela's headstone, at the fresh lilies from a billionaire. "What did I do, baby?" he asked the empty air. "I just told the truth, that's all." But the truth, apparently, was the most valuable commodity in Silicon Valley. By Monday morning, the video had 17 million views. Marcus arrived at Ashford Technologies at 6:30 a.m., an hour before his usual time, hoping to slip in unnoticed. A satellite news van was parked outside. A reporter he recognized from local TV stood near the entrance with a cameraman. "That's him!" someone shouted. Microphones materialized in his face like mushrooms after rain. "Mr. Webb, how does it feel to be an overnight sensation? Did you know you were being filmed? Have you accepted Mr. Ashford's offer of promotion and money? Is it true you're planning to sue for workplace humiliation? What would your wife think about all this attention?" That last question hit like a fist. Marcus pushed through without answering, his jaw tight enough to crack teeth. The lobby was chaos. Security guards he'd known for years looked at him differently, a mixture of awe and discomfort. The receptionist, Carol, who usually greeted him with a warm smile, busied herself with paperwork. Jennifer Kwan waited by the elevators, immaculate in a charcoal suit. She looked like she hadn't slept. "Mr. Webb, thank God, come with me, please." She led him past the regular elevators to the executive bank, inserting a key card for the penthouse level. Marcus had never been up here. This was where the real money lived. "Is Mr. Ashford going to fire me?" Marcus asked as the elevator climbed. Jennifer's laugh was sharp and humorless. "Fire you? Marcus, may I call you Marcus? You're the best thing that's happened to this company's public image in 5 years. Our stock jumped 7% this morning. 7%. Do you know what that means in market cap? No, ma'am. Neither did I until this weekend, and I have an MBA from Wharton." The elevator dinged. But apparently, America loves a feel-good story about a humble janitor speaking truth to power. You're a walking public relations miracle. The penthouse was all glass and steel, with views that made Marcus dizzy. He could see the entire bay from up here, Oakland in the distance, the Golden Gate emerging from fog, the water like hammered pewter. Richard Ashford stood at the windows, hands clasped behind his back. He'd aged a decade since Friday night. "Marcus, thank you for coming." He turned, and Marcus saw he was wearing jeans and a Stanford sweatshirt, the most casual Marcus had ever seen him. "Please, sit. Coffee?" "I'm fine, sir." "Richard, please. I think we're past sir at this point." He poured himself coffee from a French press, hands steady now. "I'm assuming you've seen the video." "Hard to miss." "I want to apologize. The person who filmed it has been terminated. Violation of privacy policy. But the damage is done." Richard sat across from him in a chair that probably cost more than Marcus's car. "My lawyers say you have grounds for a lawsuit. Humiliation, emotional distress, unauthorized use of your image. They're preparing settlement offers." Marcus blinked. "I don't want to sue anybody." "I know. Which is why my lawyers are very confused." Richard's smile was tired. "The offer I made you Friday night stands. $100,000 has been deposited into your account. Jennifer has the confirmation. The facilities manager position is yours if you want it, but I'm adding something else." He slid a folder across the table. Marcus opened it. Legal documents, dense with language he didn't understand. "It's a scholarship fund," Richard explained, "in Angela's name. $1 million, managed by an independent foundation. Full-ride scholarships for people who've had to drop out of school due to family medical emergencies. People like you, like Angela." Marcus's vision blurred. "I can't control the media circus," Richard continued, "but I can control this. Your wife taught you about dignity. Maybe it's time I learned that lesson too." "Why?" Marcus's voice was rough. "Why are you doing this?" Richard was quiet for a long time, staring into his coffee like it held answers. I have a daughter, he said finally. Emily, she's 16, lives with her mother in Connecticut. I see her maybe 6 times a year, usually for a few hours between meetings. Last night she called me. First time she's initiated a call in probably 2 years. He pulled out his phone, showed Marcus a text. Dad, I saw the video of you and that janitor. He's right about you. You don't see people. You see deals. I don't know if I matter to you more than your next acquisition, but I know that guy's wife mattered to him more than anything. That's the difference. Richard's hand shook as he put the phone down. She's right. Emily's absolutely right. I've been so focused on building an empire that I forgot to build a relationship with my own daughter. I can tell you the market cap of every competitor, but I couldn't tell you her favorite color, her favorite anything. It's never too late, Marcus said quietly. Isn't it? She barely knows me, and whose fault is that? Richard stood, walked back to the windows. You stood in that boardroom and told me the truth no one else would. You told me what it costs to be human in a system that treats people like assets, and you were right. I was angry, Marcus admitted, and grieving, and tired. I probably shouldn't have said half of what I said. No, you should have said it years ago. Someone should have said it years ago. Richard turned back. Take the weekend to think about the promotion. Think about what you want. The money's yours regardless, no strings. But Marcus, if you do decide to join management, I need you to keep doing what you did Friday night. What's that? Tell the truth, especially when, I don't want to hear it. A knock at the door. Jennifer entered with another woman Marcus didn't recognize, early 40s, sharp eyes, professional camera around her neck. This is Rebecca Martinez from the PR team, Jennifer said. We need to discuss messaging. Rebecca opened her laptop. Mr. Webb, the narrative around this video is running away from us. We need to get ahead of it. I'd like to schedule you for some interviews. Maybe Good Morning America. Definitely local news. We craft your story, control the message, turn this into something positive for both you and the company. Marcus felt the walls closing in. This was becoming something else. Something bigger and stranger than a moment of grief in a boardroom. I don't want to be on TV, he said. With respect, Mr. Webb, you're already on TV. You're on everyone's TV. The question is whether you let random strangers define your story or whether you take control of it. Rebecca's smile was professional, practiced. This could be life-changing. Book deals, speaking engagements. You could become a voice for working-class Americans, for people struggling with medical debt, for... No. Marcus stood. No, thank you. I appreciate what you're trying to do, but this isn't me. I'm not a symbol. I'm not a spokesperson. I'm just a man who misses his wife. The room went silent. Then what do you want? Richard asked. Marcus thought about Angela's grave, the flowers, the card, about his daughter's text after 3 months of silence, about sleeping alone in an apartment too full of ghosts. I want to do my job, he said simply. Whatever job that is. I want to go home without reporters following me. I want to visit my wife's grave without it becoming a photo opportunity. I want my life to be mine again. Rebecca started to protest, but Richard held up a hand. Done. Rebecca, draft a statement from the company, something about respecting Marcus's privacy and his decision to handle this privately. Jennifer, work with security and legal to keep the media at a distance. If they want a story, they can interview me. Sir, with all respect, you're not the sympathetic character here, Rebecca said carefully. No, I'm not. But Marcus is right. He's a human being, not a brand opportunity. Richard extended his hand to Marcus. Thank you for Friday night, for this morning, for everything. Marcus shook it, feeling the firm grip of a man who closed billion-dollar deals. One more thing, Richard said as Marcus turned to leave. Your daughter, Sarah, right? Marcus froze. How do you... She's a student at San Jose State, sophomore. taking out loans to cover what her financial aid doesn't. Richard pulled out another folder. The Angela Webb Scholarship Fund's first recipient. Full ride, remaining 3 years, if she wants it. Marcus couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. You saved yourself by saving others, Richard said softly. Your wife would be proud. Marcus called Sarah from the parking garage, sitting in his Honda with the check engine light glowing like a tiny sun. She answered on the first ring. Dad? Hey, baby girl. Oh my God, Dad, I can't believe everyone's seen that video. My roommate recognized you. She was like, "That's your dad?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she started crying, Dad. She started crying because of something you said. Sarah, listen. No, you listen. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I haven't been there. When Mom got sick and you were so busy with her, I got angry. Like you forgot about me, which is so selfish and stupid because Mom was dying. And I was jealous of the time you spent with her, and I hate myself for that. Baby, no. And then after she died, I didn't know what to say to you. So I said nothing. And that's even worse. I abandoned you when you needed me most, and I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. Marcus listened to his daughter cry 15 miles away across the bay and felt his own tears hot on his face. Your mom loved you so much, he said, more than anything, more than she loved me even. You were her light. I miss her. I miss her every single day. Me too, baby, me too. They cried together across the phone line, the distance between them suddenly smaller. There's something I need to tell you, Marcus said, about a scholarship. When he explained, Sarah was silent for so long he thought the call had dropped. Dad, that's impossible. That's not real. It's real. Richard Ashford, the man in the video, he set up a fund in your mom's name. You're the first recipient. Because of what you said to him? Because of what your mom taught me to say. Sarah's voice cracked. Can I come see you this weekend? I know you work nights, but maybe Saturday morning we could visit Mom together? Marcus thought of the cemetery, the fog, the fresh flowers from a billionaire who'd learned to see people. I'd like that, he said. I'd really like that. After they hung up, Marcus sat in his car watching seagulls wheel through grey sky. His phone buzzed with notifications, more news outlets, more interview requests, more strangers wanting pieces of him. He turned it off. Some things he'd learned were too sacred to share. Some things needed to stay small and quiet and his, like Saturday morning in a cemetery with his daughter, like Angela's name on a scholarship that would help people she'd never meet. Like the truth that sometimes the most valuable thing you have is the ability to say no to everything except what matters most. Marcus started his car, check engine light and all, and drove home through Friday afternoon traffic, anonymous again, invisible again, exactly as he preferred. Behind him, in a glass tower overlooking the bay, Richard Ashford stood at his windows and called his daughter in Connecticut for the second time in 2 days. The ripples were still spreading. The video hit 50 million views on Tuesday. Marcus tried to ignore it, tried to keep his head down and do his work, but the world had other plans. By Wednesday morning, a film crew from 60 Minutes was camped outside his apartment building in Daly City. A talk show host offered him $15,000 to appear for 20 minutes. A literary agent called Jennifer Kwan, wanting to discuss a memoir. You should consider it, Jennifer said during their Wednesday afternoon meeting in what was now Marcus's office, a modest space on the 3rd floor, nowhere near the executive suite, which suited him fine. That agent represents 3 New York Times bestsellers. A book about your experience could what? Marcus interrupted. Turn my wife's death into profit, turn grief into entertainment. Jennifer set down her tablet carefully. I understand your resistance, but stories have power, Marcus. Your story, Angela's story, it resonates with millions of people struggling with medical debt, with loss, with feeling invisible in a system that doesn't see them. Telling it could help people, or it could exploit them. Maybe both can be true. Marcus rubbed his face, exhausted. He'd barely slept in 4 days. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that boardroom, felt those 20 pairs of eyes on him, heard his own voice cracking as he talked about Angela, calling him the nice man. "I need some air," he said. He took the stairs down to the first floor, emerged into the main lobby. It was 3:15 on a Wednesday afternoon. The building hummed with productive energy. People hurried past with coffee, with laptops, with purpose. Most didn't notice him. A few did double takes, clearly recognizing him from the video, but unsure what to say. Marcus headed for the employee break room on the ground floor, a windowless space with vending machines and tables where the custodial and maintenance staff ate lunch. His people, the ones he'd worked beside for 11 years. The conversation stopped when he entered. 5 people sat around the largest table. Marcus knew them all. Deshawn, 24, who cleaned the 3rd and 4th floors and sent money home to his grandmother in Louisiana. Rosa, 58, who'd emigrated from Guatemala 30 years ago and worked 2 jobs to put her kids through college. Tommy, the oldest at 63, a Vietnam vet with shrapnel still in his hip. Lisa and Mike, the married couple who handled trash removal and worked opposite shifts so one of them could always be home with their autistic son. "Hey," Marcus said, suddenly feeling like an intruder. "Well, well," Tommy said, his voice neutral. "Look who's slumming it with the help." "Tommy, come on," Rosa said. "What? He's management now, right? Got his own office, making 3 times what we make. Probably doesn't even remember what it's like to clean a toilet." Marcus felt the words like a slap. "That's not fair." "Fair?" Tommy stood, all 6'4" of him unfolding like a jackknife. "You want to talk about fair? I've worked here 14 years, Marcus. 14 years. Never complained, never caused problems. Asked for a promotion to floor supervisor twice. Got told there wasn't budget. But you make some billionaire cry on camera, and suddenly there's money for promotions. There's money for whatever Marcus Webb needs. I didn't ask for any of this, but you took it." Tommy's voice was quiet now, which somehow made it worse. "You took the money, you took the promotion, you even took the TV interviews?" "I didn't do any interviews." "But you're thinking about it, aren't you? That agent calling, the book deals, the speaking fees. Soon you'll be too good for this room. Too good for people like us." "That's bullshit," Marcus shot back. "You know me, Tommy. You know I'm not like that." "I thought I did, but that was before you became famous." Deshawn stood, placing himself between them. "Y'all need to chill. This ain't helping nobody." "He's right," Rosa said quietly. "Marcus didn't choose this. It happened to him." "Yeah. Well, convenient that it happened to him and not to any of us." Tommy grabbed his lunchbox. "You know what really kills me? In that video, you talked about dignity, about how people who mop floors are no less than people who sit in corner offices. But here you are, choosing the office, choosing management, choosing their side." "There are no sides," Marcus's voice cracked. "There are always sides, Marcus, and you just switch teams." Tommy left, the door swinging shut behind him with a pneumatic hiss. The remaining 4 looked at Marcus with expressions ranging from sympathy to discomfort. "He doesn't mean it," Rosa said. "He's just... Tommy's had a hard year. His wife's medical bills..." "I know about medical bills," Marcus said flatly. "That's not what she meant," Lisa interjected. "Look, Marcus, you did good standing up to Ashford. That took guts, but Tommy's got a point too. This system doesn't usually let people like us move up. When it does, it changes people, makes them forget where they came from." "I won't forget," Marcus said. "Everyone says that. Then they get a taste of real money, real power, and suddenly we're strangers." Mike spoke for the first time, his voice gentle. "Not saying you will, just saying we've seen it before." Marcus looked at these people, his people, and saw the distance already forming. The video, the money, the promotion. It had created a gulf he didn't know how to bridge. "I'm still me," he said, but it sounded hollow, even to his own ears. The email from Sarah arrived that evening, while Marcus was eating microwave dinner in his apartment. Subject: "We need to talk, Dad. I know we're supposed to visit Mum's grave on Saturday, and I'm still planning to come. But something happened today that you need to know about. A reporter from the Chronicle found me. I don't know how. I guess it's not hard to figure out who your family is once you're famous. She wanted to interview me about you and Mom, about what it was like watching you work yourself to death trying to save her, about the medical bills, about our family." I said no, obviously. But then she told me something I didn't know. "Did you know that Mom's insurance company denied coverage for an experimental treatment? A trial at UCSF for glioblastoma patients that had shown promising results?" The reporter showed me the paperwork. "The insurance company called it unproven and not medically necessary. Dad, the treatment was approved by the FDA. Other patients in the trial are alive today, still in remission. Mum could have lived. The insurance company that denied her, do you know who sits on their board of directors? Richard Ashford. He's been on their board for 6 years. He personally benefits from every claim they deny, every treatment they refuse to cover, because it keeps their profits high and their stock prices higher. The man who gave you $100,000, the man who created a scholarship in Mom's name, he was on the board that killed her. I don't know what to do with this information. I don't know if you knew. I don't know if it changes anything. But I needed you to know. I'm still coming on Saturday. We still need to talk. I love you, Dad." Sarah Marcus read the email 3 times. Then he walked to the bathroom and vomited. When he was empty, he sat on the bathroom floor, back against the cold tile, and pulled out his phone. His hands shook as he searched Richard Ashford Medicare Partners Board of Directors. The results loaded. There it was, Richard Ashford, listed as a non-executive board member since 2019. Medicare Partners, the same company whose logo had appeared on countless denial letters, whose customer service representatives Marcus had screamed at while Angela lay dying in the next room. He thought of the lilies on Angela's grave. He thought of Ashford's trembling hands, his wet eyes, his words, "I'm sorry for your loss." He thought of the scholarship fund, the $100,000 sitting in his bank account. Blood money. All of it was blood money. Marcus made it back to the toilet just in time. He didn't sleep that night. At 3 a.m., he got in his car and drove to the office, used his new keycard to access the executive floors, rode the elevator to the penthouse level. The lights were on in Richard Ashford's office. Richard sat at his desk, illuminated by multiple monitors, still wearing the same Stanford sweatshirt from Monday. He looked up when Marcus entered, unsurprised. "I wondered when you'd figure it out," he said. "You knew." Marcus's voice was hoarse. "You knew your company killed my wife." "Not my company. I'm just on the board. 1 vote among 12. Don't you dare minimize this." Richard closed his laptop. "You're right, I'm sorry, that was a reflex. Deflection. The experimental treatment at UCSF. You were part of the decision to deny it." "No, I was in Beijing when that particular case came up, but I was part of creating the policy that allowed it to be denied. I was part of a system that prioritizes profit over people. So yes, Marcus, I'm complicit in what happened to Angela." Marcus had prepared for anger, for denial, for corporate doublespeak. The direct admission threw him. "Why?" he asked. "Why did you give me money? Why the scholarship? Why any of this if you knew?" "Because I didn't know it was your wife specifically until Sunday night." Richard stood, walked to the windows. The city glittered below, indifferent to their crisis. "After the video went viral, my assistant compiled a background file on you. Standard procedure for anyone who becomes a public figure associated with our company. The file mentioned your wife's medical history, the insurance company. When I saw Medicare Partners, He paused. "I made the connection." "And you didn't think to tell me?" Would you have believed it was coincidence that I didn't know when I made that speech about dignity and healthcare costs? Richard turned back. I was going to tell you Monday, during our meeting. Then I convinced myself it would be cruel, that you'd been through enough, that the money and the scholarship were my way of making amends without making excuses. So you thought you could buy your way out of guilt? Yes. Richard's voice was flat. That's exactly what I thought, because that's what I always do. I find a problem, I throw money at it, and I tell myself that's the same as fixing it. Marcus sank into one of the leather chairs. His legs wouldn't hold him anymore. The experimental treatment, he said. Would it have saved her? I don't know. The trials showed promise. 30% of participants achieved remission, but 30% also died within 6 months anyway. The science is still emerging. So there was a chance. There was a chance. Richard sat across from him, the same position they'd been in Monday morning, but everything was different now. And your insurance company, my insurance company, denied her that chance because it cost too much and the success rate wasn't guaranteed. How much did it cost? The trial? About $250,000 for the full treatment protocol. Marcus laughed, a sound like breaking glass. I just accepted $100,000 from you. Angela's life was worth 2.5 times the guilt money you gave me. That's the math, right? That's the actual calculus. There is no calculus that makes this okay. Then why did you do it? Why did you stay on that board? Why did you help create policies that kill people? Richard was quiet for a long time. Do you want the honest answer? He finally asked. I want the truth. Just once. I want someone in power to tell me the actual truth. Because I didn't think about it. Richard's voice was barely above a whisper. I sat in board meetings 4 times a year. I reviewed quarterly reports. I voted on policy recommendations from actuarial teams. And I never, not once, thought about the faces behind the claim numbers, the Angela Webbs. The real people whose lives we were deciding with spreadsheets and risk assessments. He stood again, unable to sit still. You asked me in that boardroom to feel something, to be moved. The truth is I've spent 20 years insulating myself from feeling, from connecting, because if I connected, if I really saw the human cost of every decision I made, I couldn't function. I couldn't run a company. I couldn't sit on boards. I couldn't do any of it. So you chose not to see, I chose not to see, and people like Angela paid the price for my willful blindness. Marcus thought of Sarah's email, of the reporter who'd connected dots that should have been connected years ago, of how many other Angela Webbs were out there, denied and dying, while men in corner offices discussed profit margins. The scholarship, he said, the Angela Webb Memorial Fund, that was your conscience trying to buy redemption. Yes. And the promotion? The $100,000? Yes. But it doesn't change anything, does it? Angela's still dead, and Medicare Partners is still denying claims, and you're still on their board. Richard met his eyes. I resigned Sunday night, effective immediately. My assistant hand-delivered the letter Monday morning. Marcus blinked. Why? Because you were right, about all of it. About comparison being poison, about dignity, about the real cost of healthcare in this country, about me not seeing people as people. Richard's voice cracked, because I looked at my daughter's text and realized I'd become exactly the kind of man I'd always feared being. The kind my father was, brilliant, successful and utterly alone, because he never learned to value anything he couldn't quantify. Resigning from one board doesn't fix the system. No, it doesn't. But it's a start. Richard pulled up something on his phone, showed it to Marcus. I've been working with Senator Morrison's office. She's been trying to pass medical debt reform for 3 years. I'm pledging $50 million to support her campaign and fund a lobbying effort for universal healthcare coverage of experimental treatments. Marcus stared at the phone. at the email chains, at what looked like legal documents. $50 million, he said numbly. It won't bring Angela back. It won't undo what happened to you, to her, to the thousands of others who've been denied and devastated. But maybe it can prevent the next Angela Webb from dying because her treatment was deemed too expensive to approve. Why are you telling me this? Because I need you to know the money I gave you wasn't charity, wasn't pity, it was restitution. A fraction of what I owe you, what the system owes you. And because, Richard's voice broke, because I need you to forgive me, and I know I have no right to ask for that. Marcus looked at this billionaire, this titan of industry, this man who'd sat on boards that decided life and death with actuarial tables, and saw what he'd seen in the bathroom mirror for 6 months. Someone drowning in guilt and grief, and the terrible knowledge that some things can't be fixed. "I can't forgive you," Marcus said. "Not yet, maybe not ever. That's not a choice I can make this quickly." Richard nodded, eyes red. "I understand. But I can tell you this. Angela would want the $50 million to go to that reform bill. She'd want experimental treatments covered. She'd want other families to have chances we didn't have. Then that's what will happen." Marcus stood, his whole body aching with exhaustion and emotion. "The promotion, the scholarship for Sarah. I need time to think about whether I can accept them. Knowing where the money comes from, knowing what it cost. Take all the time you need. And the video, if the media finds out about the Medicare Partners connection, about you being on the board that denied Angela's treatment, let them," Richard said. "Let them tear me apart. I deserve it. But your privacy, Sarah's privacy, I'll use every resource I have to protect that. The story can be about my failures. It doesn't need to be about your pain." Marcus walked to the door, then stopped. "You asked me to keep telling you the truth," he said, "to keep holding you accountable. I did. Then here's the truth. Your money and your policy changes, and your $50 million, none of it makes you a good person. None of it absolves you. You don't get to have a redemption arc where the janitor forgives the billionaire, and everyone learns a valuable lesson." Richard's face was pale. "I know. But," Marcus continued, "if you follow through, if you actually fight for healthcare reform, if you actually use your power and wealth to dismantle the systems that killed my wife, then maybe someday I can tell you that Angela's death wasn't completely meaningless, that something good came from something terrible. That's all I can ask for." Marcus left the office, took the elevator down 60 floors to ground level, and walked out into the pre-dawn darkness. His phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "Can't sleep. Still coming Saturday. I love you, Dad." He typed back, "I love you too, baby girl. We'll figure this out together." Because that was the truth Richard Ashford was still learning. Some problems couldn't be solved with money. Some wounds couldn't be healed with grand gestures. Some things required time and honesty and the slow, painful work of becoming a person who could carry grief without being crushed by it. Marcus drove home through empty streets, past the cemetery where Angela slept under granite and fresh flowers, past the hospital where she died, calling him the nice man, past all the landmarks of his grief. And somewhere in that darkness he found a small, fragile thing that might have been hope. Saturday morning arrived grey and cold, typical for the Bay Area in late October. Marcus drove to the cemetery alone, earlier than usual, needing time with Angela before Sarah arrived. The flowers from Richard Ashford were gone. Marcus had asked the cemetery staff to remove them. In their place, he'd brought sunflowers, Angela's favourite, the ones she used to grow in coffee cans on their apartment balcony when they were young and broke and happy. He sat on the damp grass beside her stone. "Baby, I don't know what to do," he said to the granite, to the ground, to whatever remained of the woman who taught him about dignity. "Sarah's coming today. She knows about Ashford, about the insurance company, about all of it. And I don't know how to explain to her why I'm still considering keeping the money, accepting the promotion, letting her take the scholarship. The morning fog drifted through the cemetery, turning headstones into ghosts. Am I selling you out? Am I letting him buy absolution with money that should have saved your life? Marcus's voice cracked. Or am I honoring what you asked me to do, to save myself, to not disappear into grief? A car pulled into the cemetery lot. Marcus turned to see Sarah's beat-up Toyota, the one he'd helped her buy 3 years ago, before medical bills consumed everything. She got out, holding her own flowers, roses, pink like the ones Angela had carried on their wedding day. They hugged without speaking, two people shaped by the same loss. "Hi, Mom," Sarah said, kneeling to place the roses beside Marcus's sunflowers. "I'm sorry I haven't visited more, school and work, and I'm just sorry." They sat together, father and daughter, in the quiet that only grief creates. "Have you decided," Sarah asked finally, "about the money, the promotion, my scholarship?" "I don't know." Marcus pulled at the grass. "Part of me wants to send it all back, to tell Ashford he can't buy forgiveness, can't erase his complicity with charity. And the other part remembers what your mom said in hospice, about saving myself, about not disappearing." He looked at his daughter, 23 years old, working 2 jobs while taking classes full-time, dark circles under her eyes that reminded him too much of Angela's final months. "The other part thinks maybe the best revenge against a system that killed your mother isn't refusing help. Maybe it's using that help to build something she'd be proud of." Sarah was quiet, processing. "I've been reading about medical debt reform," she said, "about Senator Morrison's bill that Ashford's supposedly funding now. If it passes, experimental treatments would be covered. Families wouldn't have to choose between bankruptcy and fighting cancer. That's what the bill promises. But promises aren't the same as laws, and laws aren't the same as justice." Sarah picked at the grass like her father. "I'm angry, Dad. I'm so angry at Ashford, at his insurance company, at every person who voted to deny Mom's treatment. I want them to suffer like we suffered." "I know, baby. But Mom wouldn't want that, would she? She wasn't an angry person. Even at the end, when she couldn't remember our names, she wasn't angry." Marcus thought of Angela in those final weeks, confused, frightened, diminished by disease, but never bitter, never resentful. "She used to say that holding on to anger was like swallowing poison and waiting for the other person to die," he said. "She told me that too, when I was 12 and mad at you for working a double shift and missing my recital." Sarah smiled sadly. "She said you were working double shifts because you loved us, and that anger without understanding is just noise." She was smarter than both of us combined. They sat with that truth for a while. "I think I want to accept the scholarship," Sarah said. "Not because I forgive Ashford, not because it makes what happened okay, but because Mom valued education, because she had to drop out to take care of her father, and she always regretted not finishing, because if I can graduate debt-free and become a social worker like I want, I can help other families navigate the healthcare system. I can be the advocate we didn't have." Marcus felt tears hot on his face. "She'd love that. She'd be so proud of you." "What about you? What are you going to do?" "I'm going to take the promotion," Marcus said, surprising himself with the certainty in his voice. "I'm going to keep the 100,000 and use it to pay off your mom's medical debt. Clear her name from collections. Let her rest without that weight." "And Ashford?" "I'm going to hold him accountable every day, every decision. I'm going to be the truth-teller he asked for, the one who won't let him forget why he's supposed to be fighting for reform. I'm going to make him uncomfortable and angry and confronted with the reality of what his choices cost." Sarah smiled, a real smile this time. Mom would approve of that too. A groundskeeper drove past on a small utility vehicle, giving them privacy. Birds called from oak trees planted a century ago. Life continued, indifferent to grief, relentless in its forward motion. "Can I tell you something?" Sarah asked. "Something I haven't told anyone?" "Always. I'm relieved the video went viral. Is that terrible?" "I'm relieved because it meant I had an excuse to call you. Because we'd been strangers for so long, and I didn't know how to fix it, and then suddenly there you were on everyone's phone, talking about Mom, talking about loss, and I realized I'd been disappearing too, just like you." Marcus pulled his daughter close. "We're both still here, baby. We're both still here." They stayed at the cemetery for another hour, talking about Angela. Not about her death, but her life. The way she sang off key in the shower, her terrible jokes. How she couldn't cook rice to save her life, but could make the best cornbread in 3 states. The small, bright details that make a person real beyond their ending. When they finally left, the fog had burned off. Weak sunlight filtered through the trees, turning everything golden. Monday morning, Marcus arrived at Ashford Technologies at 7 a.m., wearing his new facilities manager uniform. Still blue, still embroidered with the company logo, but different cut, different fabric. It felt strange, foreign. His office on the 3rd floor had a window overlooking the parking lot. Not the bay. Not the dramatic views of the executive suite, but a window nonetheless. His name was on the door, Marcus J. Webb, Facilities Management Director. Jennifer Kwan had left a welcome basket on his desk, expensive coffee, local pastries, a leather-bound notebook with leadership notes embossed on the cover. A card read, "Congratulations, you earned this. J.K." His first task was at 10 a.m., meeting with the custodial staff, the same people he'd worked beside for 11 years, the same people who now reported to him. They filed into the small conference room he'd reserved, Deshawn, Rosa, Tommy, Lisa, Mike, and 6 others. Familiar faces, wary eyes. Tommy sat in the back, arms crossed. "Thank you for coming," Marcus started, then stopped. The corporate speak felt wrong. "Actually, let me start over. This is weird. This is really weird. 3 weeks ago, I was emptying your trash. Now I'm your boss. And I know that creates complications." "That's one word for it," Tommy muttered. Marcus ignored the interruption. "I want to be clear about something. This promotion didn't happen because I'm better at the job than any of you. It happened because I got lucky. Because I said something that resonated with the right person at the right time. Because a video went viral and created opportunities I didn't ask for." "Opportunities you took," Tommy said. "Yes, I took them, and I'm not going to apologize for that." Marcus met Tommy's eyes. "My wife died drowning in medical debt. My daughter was taking out loans she'd spend 20 years paying off. When someone offered me a way out of that nightmare, I took it. I'd take it again. So it's about the money. It's about survival, Tommy. It's about not working until I'm 70, because I'm buried in bills from trying to keep my wife alive one more day. Yeah, it's about money, because in this country, money is survival." Rosa spoke up. "What are you going to do differently as our boss?" Marcus pulled out the leather notebook, opened to the first page where he'd been writing notes since Saturday. "I'm going to fight for better wages for all of you, starting with a 10% raise across the board, effective next pay period." That got their attention. "I'm going to implement a tuition assistance program for custodial staff who want to finish high school or pursue college. $2,000 per year, per employee, no strings attached." Deshawn leaned forward. "For real? For real? I'm also going to push for better health insurance, the kind that actually covers things, the kind that would have saved my wife's life." "Ashford will never approve that," Tommy said, but his voice had lost some of its edge. "Maybe not immediately, but he will eventually, because I'm going to make his life hell until he does." Marcus allowed himself a small smile. "You know what I learned from that video? from standing in that boardroom telling a billionaire uncomfortable truths? That power respects persistence. That if you keep showing up, keep speaking truth, keep refusing to be invisible, eventually people listen. And if he fires you for being difficult, Lisa asked, then I'll be difficult somewhere else. But I don't think he will. I think Richard Ashford is trying very hard to become a different kind of leader, and I'm going to help him do that, whether he likes it or not. The room was quiet. Look, Marcus continued, I know some of you think I sold out, that I crossed to the other side, and maybe in some ways I did. But I'm still the same person who mopped these floors at 3 a.m. I still understand what it means to be invisible, to be treated like you don't matter. And I'm going to use whatever power this position gives me to make sure none of you are invisible anymore. Pretty speech, Tommy said, but he'd uncrossed his arms. I don't want speeches, I want results. Marcus closed the notebook. So here's my first decision as your director. I'm implementing a policy where no executive meeting can start until the meeting room is completely clean and stocked. No more leaving messes for the night crew. No more treating you like servants. If they want to use the space, they respect the people who maintain it. Rosa smiled. They'll hate that. Good. Let them hate it. Let them remember for 5 seconds what it feels like to think about someone else's dignity. The meeting ended with cautious optimism. Not everyone was convinced. Tommy remained skeptical, and a few others looked doubtful. But it was a start. As people filed out, Deshawn hung back. Mr. Webb, Marcus, can I ask you something? Sure. That speech in the video, when you talked about your wife teaching you about dignity, did you mean it, or was it just something that sounded good in the moment? Marcus thought about the question. About Angela in the hospice bed, about the promise he'd made her, about the slow, painful work of keeping that promise. Both, he said honestly. In the moment, I was angry and grieving and saying whatever felt true. But everything I said was also something Angela actually taught me. Sometimes the things that sound good are also the things that are true. Deshawn nodded. My grandmother, the one I send money to in Louisiana, she's got diabetes. Can't afford her insulin half the time, rations it, tries to make it last. When you talked about choosing between treatment and keeping the lights on, I felt that. I'm living that. Then we're going to fix it, Marcus said. Maybe not today, maybe not even this year, but we're going to fight like hell to make healthcare in this country something that doesn't destroy families. You really think one person can make a difference? No, but a lot of people working together can, and it starts with one person deciding not to be silent anymore. That afternoon, Marcus had his first one-on-one meeting with Richard Ashford since their 3 a.m. confrontation. Richard's office looked different in daylight, less intimidating, more human. Photos that Marcus hadn't noticed before. Richard with his daughter Emily at a science fair. Richard with an elderly woman who must have been his mother. Richard on a sailboat, genuinely smiling. Marcus, thanks for coming up. Richard gestured to the seating area by the windows. How was your first day? Complicated. I heard you're implementing some policy changes. Who told you? Jennifer. Tommy. He called me directly. Richard's smile was wry. Said I should know my new facilities director was either going to revolutionize this company or get himself fired within a month. Marcus tensed. If you're going to... I'm not going to fire you, Marcus. I'm going to support you. The raise you promised, approved. The tuition assistance, approved. The policy about respecting cleaning staff, already implemented company-wide. Richard pulled up an email on his tablet. I sent this to all executives this morning. Effective immediately. All employees are responsible for basic cleanliness in shared spaces. Custodial staff are colleagues, not servants. Treat them accordingly or find employment elsewhere. Marcus stared. You can't just... That's going to piss off a lot of people. I know. I've already gotten 12 angry calls. Good. Let them be angry. Let them remember what it feels like to clean up their own messes. They sat in silence for a moment. "Senator Morrison's office called," Richard said. "The medical debt reform bill goes to committee next month. The $50 million I pledged, plus matching donations from 3 other tech CEOs I convinced to join, means we have actual lobbying power now, real ability to influence the vote. And if it fails, then we try again and again until it passes." Richard's voice was firm. "I told you I was done being complicit. I meant it." "Why?" Marcus asked. "Why now? Why not 10 years ago when you first joined Medicare's board? Why not 20 years ago when you started making decisions that affected people's lives?" Richard was quiet, looking out at the bay. "Do you know why I built this company?" he finally asked. "To make money? To win? No, I mean yes, but that's not why I started. I started Ashford Technologies because my mother, the woman in that photo, worked 3 jobs to put me through MIT. She cleaned offices at night, just like you did, just like the people who work here." Marcus looked at the photo again, saw the woman's kind eyes, her tired smile. "She died when I was 30. Heart attack. She was 53 years old. The doctor said decades of overwork, stress, no health care, no retirement savings. It all caught up. She literally worked herself to death so I could have opportunities she never had. I'm sorry. I told myself I'd build a company that treated workers better, that valued everyone, not just executives. And then..." Richard's laugh was bitter. "Then I got successful. Started focusing on growth, on market share, on beating competitors. I convinced myself that creating jobs and driving innovation was enough, that I was honoring her memory by being successful. But you weren't. No, I was betraying it. I became exactly the kind of person she would have worked for, someone who saw employees as assets, who made decisions based on spreadsheets instead of humanity." Richard turned back to Marcus. "When you stood in that boardroom and talked about Angela, about dignity, about the real cost of our healthcare system, it was like hearing my mother's voice, telling me I'd lost my way. So you're doing this for her." "I'm doing this because it's right. But yes, I'm also doing it for her, for the life she deserved and never got, for all the people like her who work and sacrifice and die without ever seeing justice." He paused. "And I'm doing it because of you, because you had the courage to tell the truth when it mattered." Marcus thought about that, about how one moment of honesty, born from grief and anger and exhaustion, had somehow become this. A movement. A change. "I need you to understand something," he said. "I'm not your redemption arc. I'm not the magical janitor who teaches the billionaire to be human. This isn't a movie where we become friends and everything's okay. I know. I'm angry at you. Part of me will always be angry at you, because you were part of the system that killed Angela. And no amount of policy changes or charitable donations will bring her back. I know that too. But," Marcus continued, "I'm also practical. And I understand that change doesn't happen through purity. It happens through imperfect people making imperfect choices that move things in a better direction. So I'm going to work with you. I'm going to push you, challenge you, make you uncomfortable. And you're going to fund reform efforts and change company policies and use your power for something other than accumulation." Richard extended his hand. "Deal." Marcus shook it, feeling the same firm grip from that night in the boardroom. "One more thing," Richard said. "Emily's coming to visit next weekend. She wants to meet you." "Why?" "Because you're the reason her father called her for the first time in months. The reason I'm actually trying to be present in her life instead of just a name on birthday cards and tuition checks." Richard's voice softened. "She says you showed her that it's possible for people to change, even people who seem too far gone." Marcus thought of Sarah, of their visit to Angela's grave, of the slow rebuilding of their relationship. Tell her I'd be happy to meet her, but I'm not making any promises about her father. People don't change overnight. No, but they can start changing, and sometimes that's enough. The video eventually faded from the news cycle, replaced by new viral moments, new outrages, new stories. By Thanksgiving, it had dropped out of the top searches. By Christmas, most people had forgotten about the janitor who made a billionaire cry, but the changes remained. Senator Morrison's medical debt reform bill passed committee in January with surprising bipartisan support. It would be another 18 months of amendments and negotiations before it became law, but it would pass. Experimental treatments would be covered. Families would have advocates built into the system. Medical bankruptcy would become harder to fall into. Not because of one video, not because of one speech, but because that speech had catalyzed something. A coalition of activists, politicians, healthcare workers, and yes, billionaires who decided silence was no longer acceptable. Ashford Technologies implemented sweeping changes to how it treated non-executive employees. Better wages, better benefits, better respect. Other tech companies followed suit, not out of altruism, but because competition for talent demanded it. Marcus stayed on as facilities director. He clashed with Richard regularly, heated arguments about budgets, about priorities, about the pace of change. They weren't friends. They'd probably never be friends. But they were partners in something larger than themselves. Tommy eventually warmed to Marcus's leadership, especially after Marcus got him promoted to floor supervisor with a $15,000 raise. Rosa retired with a pension that would actually cover her expenses. Deshawn enrolled in community college using the tuition assistance program. Sarah graduated debt-free, became a social worker specializing in helping families navigate healthcare bureaucracy. She visited Angela's grave every Saturday, sometimes with Marcus, sometimes alone. And Marcus learned to live with grief instead of being consumed by it. He kept Angela's coffee mug in the cabinet, but sometimes used it himself. He changed the answering machine message to just his voice, though it took 3 months to work up the courage. He started sleeping through the night again. 6 months after the video, a documentary crew approached him about a film. He declined. A publisher offered a book deal. He declined. A non-profit wanted him to be their spokesperson. He declined, because the story wasn't about him. It wasn't about Richard. It wasn't about one moment of truth in a boardroom. It was about the thousands of Angela Webbs who died waiting for approval. The millions of people crushed by medical debt, the system that valued profit over people and called it good business. And the slow, unglamorous, essential work of changing that system one policy, one conversation, one uncomfortable truth at a time. On a Saturday morning in late spring, Marcus stood in the cemetery again. The fog had burned off early, leaving everything washed in golden light. Sunflowers bloomed around Angela's headstone. He'd planted them months ago, tended them through winter. Sarah had texted that she couldn't make it this week, a work emergency, a family in crisis who needed her. He told her it was okay. Angela would understand. He sat on the grass, dry now, warm with sun. "Baby, I don't know if you can hear me," he said. "I don't know if there's anything after this, but if there is, if you're somewhere, I need you to know I kept my promise. I saved myself, or I'm trying to. Every day I'm trying." A groundskeeper drove past, waved. Marcus waved back. "The scholarship in your name. 12 students this year. 12 people who won't have to choose between education and survival. The healthcare reform bill passed. It's not perfect, it's not enough, but it's something. It's a start." He touched her name on the stone, traced the letters he'd memorized. "Sarah's good, really good. You'd be so proud of her. She's fighting for families like we were, making sure they have advocates, support, someone who sees them as human beings instead of claim numbers." A butterfly, improbably orange, impossibly bright, landed on the sunflowers. Marcus watched it, this small, perfect thing, this reminder that beauty persists even in places built for grief. And me. I'm okay. Not happy, maybe. Not yet. But okay. I wake up and go to work. I fight with billionaires about healthcare policy. I help people who clean floors feel like they matter. I call our daughter and actually listen instead of just waiting for her to hang up. He paused. I'm living, Angela. Not just surviving. Actually living. The butterfly took flight, orange against blue sky. I miss you every single day. I'll miss you every day for the rest of my life. But I'm not disappearing. I'm here. I'm still here. Marcus stood, brushed grass from his jeans. He had lunch plans with Richard and Emily, an awkward arrangement that Richard's daughter had insisted on, wanting to thank Marcus for whatever had shifted in her father. It wouldn't be comfortable. It would probably be weird. Richard was still learning how to be present, still fighting decades of emotional distance, but he was trying, and sometimes trying was enough. Marcus left the cemetery as the sun climbed higher, burning off the last of the fog. His phone buzzed. Sarah, texting a photo of herself at work with a family who'd just gotten approved for treatment after a 6-month battle with insurance companies. Mom would be proud, the caption read. I think you would be too. Marcus replied, I am, so proud. Love you, baby girl. Then he drove toward the restaurant, toward an uncomfortable lunch, toward a life that wasn't the one he'd planned, but was the one he had. The video that had changed everything was just data now, ones and zeros floating in the cloud, forgotten by most. But the changes, the real, messy, imperfect changes, those remained. And somewhere in the space between grief and hope, between anger and forgiveness, between what was lost and what could be built, Marcus Webb found something that felt almost like peace. It wasn't the ending he would have chosen, but it was an ending he could live with. And sometimes that was enough. End.